Shalom, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, HaRakah, Quadash. Double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, and shalom to the whole full elect. It's Payal of the GMS London camp. This is News and Prophecy and News. I have an article here from Summit News, alright? And the article reads, Supreme Court Judge expects people will be forced to wear masks, stay home for 10 years. Alright? So that's like a prediction and opinion based upon the things that are going on and how it can go. To get into the article, Lord willing, you be edified, but you'll see the points and I'll bring up some scriptures. Yeah, Lord will you be edified. Excuse me. So let me get into it. So it says it's politically unrealistic to expect the government to backtrack now. Alright? So as we get into this, you're gonna see that. So it says Britain's former Supreme Court Judge Lord Sumption has warned the social controls brought about by the vid pandemic may be kept in place by governments for up to a decade. Alright? It's politically unrealistic to expect the government to backtrack now. And this is something, I spoke to people in the world and they can see that, well, one individual could see that there's no going back. He just said, well, there's no, and even, these are both relatives of mine in passing had conversations with them. And one said, yeah, there's no going back. The other said, man, I totally forgot what was said, but it was right there, but it's gone. Oh well. So let me read on. It says it's politically unrealistic to expect the government to backtrack now, commented Sumption, who has been highly critical of the government's totalitarian lockdown policies. Alright? So this Lord right here has been greatly. I checked out this video, quite a good video. It's interesting. He lays out some good points. Lord willing, I'll attach this article to the video, and you can have a look at the video because he basically goes into it. But there is no going back. Alright, this is the end. Alright, ultimately this is biblical prophecy coming to pass. Alright, let me even because this is really Esau knows what time it is. Alright, he's got pressure upon him right now. It says Revelation 12:12. Therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down unto you. Alright, the devil being Esau, Edom, the red Hebrew Edomite, or today as he likes to refer to himself as so-called white man. Alright. To present perfection upon the earth, and also Caucasians, a throwback to the homage to the Caucasus Mountains when they abode there, fulfilling the prophecy of Job 30. But reading on, it says, for the devil has come down unto you having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. Right, that's why he's doing all of this. That's why he's seeing all of these things happen, alright? Because basically, he knows his back's up against the wall. And he needs to make things, pan out for his agenda, alright? So it says the judge compared the reaction. And as we're getting into it, you're going to understand that, the agenda really is to erase Jake. The judge compared the reaction to rotating after the rationing after the Second World War, which went on for 9 years, adding that this time I think it may even be longer. Alright? So you had rations in effect after the Second World War in the UK, alright, going on for 10 years, for 9 years, nearly a decade. Alright? And they were out the war. Clear gone out the war. 9 years for what? Alright? Obviously, someone was benefiting. Cubano, who benefits? Someone was benefiting. An interesting parallel is the continuation of wartime food rationing. After the last war, people were in favor of that because they were in favor of social control. He said during a sketch notes on podcast. In the 1951 general election, the Labour Party lost its majority entirely because people with 5 years more experience of social control got fed up with it. Sooner or later, that will happen in this country, he added. But they know that, all right? They're aware that this will wear away, all right? See, he's got this Lord Sumption has got this as a reference point. And don't think that if he does, what so more someone like Lord, what's this guy? Evelyn, or however it's pronounced, Evelyn Rothschild, all right? What some more him, all right? They'll be aware of all of this knowledge, okay? Because they know about utilizing policy, all right? So, yeah, people get fed up, but there's going to be certain stipulations in place that will make it as to where it's a get down or lay down type of situation. Sumption's warning comes in the wake of Public Health England officials stating that the restrictions will remain in place for as long as other countries have not vaccinated everyone, a process likely to take years. Yeah, and you even had a shortage dealing with weren't they shipping something out, shipping, I believe, Pfizer out of Italy to another country. I believe it was Australia, I can't remember. But they held back because there was a shortage of supplies. So, and you've been seeing that, and then AstraZeneca hasn't been effective. It's been causing, they're saying it's been causing blood clotting, all right? So all these different things throw the timing in, up in the air kind of thing. So it gives leeway for what? For people to, implement these restrictions and basically, present it in a way where they can stay for however long they need to stay. All right? But the main point in dealing with those restrictions would be the vaccination passport, which will ultimately lead to the chip. All right? The mark of the beast. So it says England's chief medical officer also recently asserted that the pandemic restrictions, which have been in place on and off for a year, have improved life for some people. Despite promising an end to restrictions in June, the UK government yesterday extended emergency vid rules until October, with Health Minister Matt Hancock refusing to say how long they will remain in place after that. So they're just kicking the can further down the road, and that's what they're going to keep on doing. It don't stop, all right? So it says Lord Sumption also noted during the podcast that scientists skeptical of lockdown policies have been subjected to an extraordinary, unpleasant campaign of personal abuse, all right? I have a lot of people that would prefer not to put their head above the parapet, he continued, adding, from the very moment I started to make these points, I began to get emails from politicians who agreed with what I had to say, but that they themselves didn't dare to speak out. That I think is a very serious state of affairs. So you got even people within the political, you know, parliament and all that. They ain't even messing with the restrictions and the science that's gone out. But they ain't gonna open their mouth because they want their belly to stay fed. So it says the judge also argued that governments are using the virus politically, noting they have, and this is the main point, one of the main points of the article. The judge also argued the governments are using the virus politically, noting they have consistently tried to maintain that the virus is indiscriminate when it's perfectly well established that it primarily affects people with identifiable vulnerabilities, particularly in the elderly. And that's something we know, right? It's the main thing is that it affects people, alright, that are older and have health difficulties. So when they're actually saying that these people are more vulnerable or this is that, they're using it for their political gain, alright? And really, really that's going into jail, alright? Because the main, hey, over in the States, who are they talking about most vulnerable? So-called black people, so-called Hispanics, alright? Over here, who they saying? Black and ethnic minorities, alright? So, really, there's, everyone knows it affects, elderly people and those with health vulnerabilities. But the fear mongering and the brainwashing of the people allows it to be, for their political agenda to basically, do what they want to do. They're gonna say it affects whoever it affects. This is Hebrews 12 and 14. Sorry, 16 and 17 says, "Lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright." Alright, sold it to our forefather. The fourth Esau, Edom, the forefather of the so-called white man, sold it to the forefather, our forefather, um, of the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Alright, for some for food, basically. Alright, so it's gonna go into it. For ye know how that afterward when he would have inherited the blessing, he was rejected and found no place of repentance, though he sought it carefully with tears. Alright, so there was no place that he was able to find repentance, alright, because he was rejected, but he sought it carefully with tears. Now this is part of him sorting it carefully with tears, because also when you go to the book of Jeremiah, it tells you about if you can search out the stars in the heaven, etc., etc., then basically Israel will be removed from being before the Lord as his chosen. And that's why Esau's out there in space trying to measure, space continuum, whatever the wording is. He's trying to analyze all of that down to what? To knock Israel out of their place, alright? But it can't be so. Okay, so that shows you he's using it for this is part of him sorting it carefully with tears. The fact that for his political agenda, he's marginalizing or putting the spotlight on Jacob and making him to be the criminal. So let me read. I wanted to read a couple precepts on that as well. No, over there. Yeah, let me go here real quick. Okay. So it's Obadiah 1 and 10 says, "For thy violence against thy brother Jacob," that's dealing with Esau, "shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever." Alright? So basically, Jacob is going to be cut off, forever, basically. Salakia, that's Satan, man. Esau's going to be cut off forever. Alright? For breaking that brotherly covenant and basically helping the Babylonians to take us down when we went into captivity. Verse 11, "In the day that thou stoodest on the other side, in a day when the strangers carried away captive his forces, and foreigners entered into his gates, and cast lots upon Jerusalem, even thou was as one of them." Alright? That's going back to the Babylonian captivity. So they basically they saw Wool getting taken down, and they seized the opportunity to basically show their fangs, man. Damn devils. Meant to be our brothers, and that's how you repay us. So that shows you that they ain't right, man. And they saw the opportunity when it was there. And that was the same thing being said with this, and this Lord Sumption is speaking about. This is an opportunity for them to utilize these things for political gain. Okay, and one of their main policies or policies in place is to take Israel off the face of the earth. So it says, verse 12, but thou shouldest not have looked on the day of thy brother. No, let me have read that. Thou shouldest not have entered into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity. Yea, thou shouldest not have looked on their affliction in the day of their calamity, nor have laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity. Verse 14, neither shouldest thou have stood in the crossway to cut off those of his that did escape, neither shouldest thou have delivered up those of his that did remain in the day of his distress. Alright? So that's what they did. And that's their characteristics, okay? When they see us down, man, they want to stamp on us. So this is no, I don't want to read It's one of the songs I'm thinking about. It's escaping me right now. '64. Uh-huh. Alright. So let me read this as well. So this is Psalm 64 and 2, read down to verse 6. Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity, who whet their tongue like a sword and bend their bows to shoot their arrows, even bitter words. And that's what they're doing, alright? Like I said, let me read it again just to kind of hone in on that point. The judge also argued that the governments are using the virus politically, alright? Noting that they have consistently tried to maintain that the virus is indiscriminate when it is perfectly well established that it primarily affects people with indefinable vulnerabilities, particularly the elderly. And if you notice throughout the course of the pandemic, it's like the perfect storm for the devil to basically utilize for his agenda, because at any moment it can mutate, and the mutation can basically materialize the darkest fear before the people for whatever purpose. So now the people that are least scared of the virus are the youth, all right? They're not that scared because as far as they know, they said the elderly people get, but they were saying that, well, if you don't want your grandmother to die or your granddad to die, you know, don't be bringing it. You don't be going out because you could bring it home. So that played on their mind, all right. But then really, it's like now they're saying with the new one, they're saying it's more effective with younger people, something like of that nature, all right. So you could see that they manipulate it whenever they feel, all right, to for their political use. So let me even look up this word politically. So it says politically, in a way that relates to the government or public affairs of a country. And that's the point. In a way that relates to the political ideas or beliefs of a person or group. All right. So they basically, it's not fact. All right. They're using it for their personal what? In a way that relates to the political ideas or beliefs of a person or group. So, all right, let me read it on. So remember, that's what politically means. Knowing they have consistently tried to maintain the virus is indiscriminate when it is perfectly well established that it primarily affects people with identifiable vulnerabilities, particularly in the elderly. So let's go back. I was in 64 and 2. Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity, who whet their tongue like a sword, and mend their bows to shoot their arrows, even bitter words. Those are bitter words, alright? Because you know they keep saying that the main people that they keep on bringing up as problematic in this pandemic is so-called blacks, well, mainly blacks in the UK, but blacks and Hispanics in America, and ethnic minorities, those outside of that, because they don't believe in this whole Maxine, alright? Verse 4, that they may shoot in secret at the perfect, alright, the perfects being the tribes, so-called Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans, Judah, Benjamin, Levi, Ephraim, Simeon, Gad, Reuben, Naphtali, Asher, alright? Issachar. So reading on it says, that they may shoot in secret at the perfect, suddenly do they shoot at him and fear not. They encourage themselves, and that's how they're going to shoot you with that that little sword, man. That's how they shoot in secret. You don't know what's in that. They encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune of laying snares privily. They say, who shall see them? They search out iniquities. They accomplish a diligent search. Both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep. Alright? And that's what they're doing. So let me finish up on this article. So it says, the judge also argued the government's speaking about the draconian crackdown on anti-lockdown protesters. Sumption said people ought to be entitled to voice their differences of opinion, adding, if the only way you can enforce distancing is by beating people over the head with truncheons, then it's not worth it. Alright? Now, the Brits have allowed the society to be permanently deformed, with polls routinely showing vehement support for lockdown and other pandemic rules. Things are never going to be the same again. And that's the point. They said that, listen, they had a bloody PR rollout the moment the pandemic landed, man, saying about the new normal. Who the fuck, where did the new normal come from? All right? Like a month into the pandemic and they're talking about a new normal. Show you this ain't planned, all right? And people don't know about the event 201 and all these different various things. The fact that the vid is patented, however you pronounce the word, okay? So all of this is a planned, controlled demolition, basically, whereby they take the rights of the people and establish a whole new normal, around new world order. So it says, now that the Brits have allowed society to be permanently deformed, the polls routinely showing, I've read that, having allowed the president that the government can put the entire population under de facto house arrest on a whim, look for the policy to be repeated over and over again, all right? And that's the point. Look for the policy to be repeated over and over again, and different justifications that have nothing to do with the vid, all right? As we previously highlighted, one of those justifications will be man-made global warming, with climate lockdowns set to become a regular reality. That's I didn't even see that part. So that might be another thing that's going to come through. But the point being is that, as he said, look for the policy to be repeated over and over again. Because he breaks it down so eloquently in the video. He basically says, look, the British people just basically said, yeah, okay, cool, we'll be on house arrest anytime you tell us. And that's why, the Brits are so fucking passive, man. They ain't got no backbone when it comes to things like this. Because America is it'd be a whole different kind of thing. Jake, man, you already know Jake. Well, Jake right now, Jake is passive as all hell, man. But, yeah, man, British culture is more PC, very not nonchalant, but very, no one wants to make a fuss, basically. But in doing so, they basically signed their own death warrant, man. Because now, any drop of a hat, house arrest. Like, they've let you out for how long? What? April, May, April, sorry, April until what? September? So it's like, what? April, May, June, July, August, September. About 6 months. So you get 6 months on, 6 months off, basically. You got to be inside for the winter time. Hoping that nothing, the society don't deteriorate. All right. So let me even get on the policy quickly. So this is Daniel's 8:25. So it says, and through his policy also, he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart. All right, because that's Esau being a proud man. Ezekiel, the 28th chapter, goes into that about how he believes is God. All right, and that policy, his craft to prosper, is basically casting spells on the people, man. All right, witchcraft. And by peace shall destroy many. All right, he shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. All right. So this is, I always go to the same set of precepts when dealing with policy, because they have their power, man. This example. Oh, Maccabees. Apologies. Second Maccabees 8. See, First Maccabees. Man. First Maccabees 8:1. Now Judas had heard of the Romans that they were mighty and valiant men, and such as would lovingly accept all that join themselves unto them. As dealing with the Romans in the Bible. Alright, this is in the Apocrypha in the original 1611 of King James, which King James was a so-called black man. All the people within the UK at that time were men of colour. Alright, but subsequently a lot of them died due to what? The Black Death. Alright, it weren't named the Black Death just by chance. Just like the Knights weren't named Knights just by chance. Like the Dark Ages weren't named the Dark Ages just by chance. Alright, and that they look down upon those ages. If you look at how this man tells history when it comes to the Roman Empire, alright, and the Renaissance period, they're akin to each other, alright. But when it comes to the Dark Ages and things of that nature, they don't care, man, alright. And that's down to the fact that we ruled during that time. So anyway, I'm straying from the point, but yeah, it was in the Apocrypha they took it out, alright, because this basically shows you that the Romans are pieces of and also it speaks about the Greeks being the beginning of evil multiplying upon the earth. So how would they be able to teach you about Greek philosophy in school, alright, or more so, Greek, upholding Greeks so highly if the Bible says that the wickedness began with them. So anyway, now Judas had heard of the Romans that they were mighty and valiant men, such as would lovingly accept all that join themselves unto them, and make a league of amity with all that came unto them. That they were men of great valor. It was told him also of their wars and noble acts which they had done among the Galatians, and how they had conquered them and brought them under tribute, and what they had done in the country of Spain for winning of the mines of silver and gold which was there. That's the point. And that by their policy and patience they had conquered all the place, though it were very far from them. Alright. So the Romans at that time conquered, all roads led to Rome. Why? Because they went out of Rome, and they basically, by way of their policy and patience, they conquered all the place, even though it was very far. That's not an easy task to do. So what? So more now in this time, all right. It says, and the kings also that came against them from the utmost part of the earth, till they had discomfited them and given them great overthrow, so that the rest did give them tribute every year. So they had control, and that was done through what? Policy. Same thing is going on with this pandemic right now. So the main point, alright, is that through this pandemic, they're mainly utilizing it for their political agenda. Alright? And that's really to see you tribes gone, man. Alright? As I read in Revelation 12 and 12, the devil cometh down with great wrath because he knows that he have a short time. What's the short time? The Lord's return. Alright? And Jake waking up. Alright? Because Jake waking up signifies the end of the world. So with that, I pray you're edified to the next one. Say shalom.